There's this campaign of stop hiring humans, just hire an AI SDR and he'll do the job for you. That's everyone's dream. It will happen. It's just not there yet. Now, I think that for the years to come, certain tools will be a requirement very soon. Like at least like Clay, Genesee, Instantly Smart Lead, they will soon be a must. And I will give them two advices. The first thing is that you need to get hard skills, because as an SDR, you get soft skills. You become amazing at soft skills, but that's not enough in life in general.
What would you say to SDRs today? How should they think about, if they want to grow in the profession, what would you tell them they focus on?
Yeah, I will tell them to focus on two things.
Welcome to the pod. Today, we are talking about go-to-market engineering, sales AI, and the future of sales with Fivos Aresti, who is the head of growth at ColdIQ. Fivos is currently in Bali, having a very nice team meetup. And thank you for coming. How are you, Fivos?
Thank you, Iván. Thank you for the introduction. I'm doing great. Bali is nice, sunny, so I can't complain. What about you?
Good. Sunny Barcelona. Really can't complain either. So let's get right into it. So I found Fivos because of his work on LinkedIn. He's been publishing really great content on building B2B go-to-market systems, using tech tools to help sales team and just everything regarding go-to-market, what to do for founders, for operators in 2025. And today we'll talk about 6 topics, if we can get to them. Starting with, what does a go-to-market tech stack look like for startups? What is a go-to-market engineer, or is there a function that actually exists? Is cold emailing dead? AI SDRs, the return of the full stack account executive or not? And how he's been using LinkedIn as a go-to-market magnet, which I found fascinating, with really good design and actionable with lists. And I'd love to dig a little bit more into that. And finally, we'll close with, any books, recommendations, or where to get started if you want to learn more about this area of the world, right? This particular topic, which everybody should be learning about, especially in this day and age. So, quick background, Fivos. Let's start with your journey. How did you get into sales and growth roles and into this? No, where do we start?
Yeah, sure. From my background, so I actually did a master's in entrepreneurship in ESADE in Spain, in Barcelona, and I was just brainstorming of what should I focus on. So I took inspiration from Naval Ravikant, that he's always saying you should either build or sell. So I decided to focus on selling. So my first couple of roles, I helped 2 companies in Spain with selling. So I did everything when it comes to SDR work, account executive work, and also setting up outbound systems. And then I met Michelle and Alex from ColdIQ, and I joined them. So ColdIQ, we essentially help B2B companies to scale the outbound motion without adding headcount by using AI tools. So far we help more than 300 B2B companies. We also train more than 100 people. So yeah, I have quite a lot of data that I think it will be useful for a lot of founders and salespeople that are trying to build their go-to-market motion.
Awesome. I think you're the second person who mentions Naval and the Almanac in the past 24 hours. I'm also a big fan. People should read this up. I think he says, learn to build, learn to sell. And if you can do both, you'll be unstoppable. And I think it's very interesting how you actually do both, because you say that you learn to sell, but you're also building systems which you depict with nice infographics, like how to use multiple tech tools to achieve a particular goal, which I think stacks on top of each other. And it's very interesting. So with that, from the perspective of a founder, if you were setting up a startup go-to-market stack from scratch, what would it look like? And it'd be super helpful if we look at pre-seed, seed, and, depending on resources, what does a super lightweight look one and above?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and generally it depends on the stage, of course, and the cash in the bank as well. So you have to be really wise in where you put it, especially if you pre-seed or seed or you just raised. So yeah, what I was telling you before, Iván, is that the term go-to-market is a bit complicated. People use it for different ways. So the way I define it is essentially there's multiple channels, and each of them, they requires different tools, different skill set, etc. So what I can focus on what I can for today could be, I think, outbound and inbound led outbound, which I think that it's applicable for every single stage. To give some context, the channels that we focus at ColdIQ now to scale our company from 300K MRR to 900K by the end of the month is 5 channels. The first is called outbound. Second is inbound led outbound. Third is content. Fourth is SEO. And 5 is ads.
So you mentioned 5 channels already. First question, taking a step back, how would you recommend a founder even start thinking about what channels they should prioritize with the focus and the resources that they have when they're, let's call it, they just hit their first 10,000 a month, or they're just about starting to get their first amount of recurring revenue? How should they do this hypothesis testing or think about where to start or focus?
Yeah, I think you should do at the beginning things that don't scale. There is no need to double down on something that you haven't proven that is actually working. For example, ads, it's you need a lot of cash to be invested in that channel to actually make it work. So if you're just starting out, obviously you cannot double down on that channel. On the other side, cold outbound, which is essentially reaching out to people with a cold email or a cold LinkedIn DM, it doesn't actually cost anything. So you can start off doing it manually, and then by doing it manually, you track the conversions and change the messaging and just measuring what works. The same with content. You don't have to pay anything for it, and you can generate organic traction. And founder-led content is actually one of the best channels for 2025, simply because the buyer journey has changed and people want to buy from people, and they want to buy from people that show their credibility. And you can do this by content. This is how you also found me, Iván, is because I'm putting myself out there, and that's why you invited me in this podcast. So obviously it works. For cold outbound, what I always suggest is you first start by doing it manually. And once you see few signs of success, then there is multiple tools that we can dive deeper later that are going to help you to scale this motion further. And you can, you can achieve personalized outreach at scale by simply using tools without needing to hire 10 SDRs.
Before we move into the go-to-market engineering cheat sheet, which I assume becomes relevant once you actually have some sort of go-to-market motion. Before that, what does a minimum viable tech stack look like for sales, right? You mentioned cold outreach. Don't even think about tooling yet. Cool. I open my sales navigator. I start DMing people, or you can do that across the channels that you have available to you. But where do I start if I have nothing?
Yeah. If you have nothing, I mean, the only thing you need is just Gmail and a LinkedIn account, right? So that's to start with. You just do it manually. Just optimize your LinkedIn account, which does take time, and people undervalue an optimized LinkedIn account. So, and then just a Gmail. Now, if you want to take it a step further, Google and Outlook have a lot of updates. So you really need to play by the rules, and you cannot send thousands of emails from your main domain and from your main mailbox. There's a lot of things that you need to optimize for. Let me know if you want me to go deeper in this one, because there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, if you can give us a little bit more on that. So I've set up my Gmail account. I'm not even thinking about a CRM or automation and tools yet. And I'm going to hit a limit, right? And I don't know how to optimize my inbox either, because I'm talking to team updates. I'm recruiting people, and I have to do the outreach. I have to do founder-led sales in the beginning. So what's the 80-20 of how to set up my Gmail to do outreach at the beginning?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it can become very advanced, but the way that we found is best based on data is that you should limit yourself to sending 25 emails per day per mailbox, right? So do not exceed that. If you want to scale further than that, then you need to buy separate mailboxes. And I always recommend for cold outreach, even if you're doing it at a small scale, just buy an extra domain. So that's really important, because you don't want to hurt the reputation of your main domain, because you're going to run the risk of doing demos and then sending an offer, and that offer will land in spam. So you don't want that to happen, obviously. So yeah, when it comes to landing in the primary, there's a lot of things that you help. I can give you 9 tips. So first one is disable tracking links when you do the outreach. Buy separate domains. Buy 2 mailboxes per domain. 50% of the mailboxes should be Google, 50% should be Outlook. And then if you use a tool like Smartly or Instantly, you can auto match the receiver with the sender. So warm up those mailboxes for at least 2 weeks. And just set, you obviously need to set up all the right records, the SPF, the KIM, the DMARCs, and use also spin tags in your copy and make sure you verify all the emails. The last point is actually one of the most important, because most people, what they do is that they will go in a tool like SalesNav or Apollo, they will scrape a list, and then they will just shoot emails. The issue with that is that those databases actually have a lot of emails that are unvalidated. Actually, 50% of those are not valid. So what happens when you send out emails to unvalidated emails, it's going to bounce. So if you have a high bounce rate, it means that the overall deliverability will just go down. So you really need to verify all those emails, and you can use tools like Million Verifier, Lead Magic, Deep Bounce. There's a lot out there.
Super interesting. So if I do a little inversion exercise with you, most common mistakes founders make when they haven't been in sales, let's call it go to market before, is they go out over subscribe on tooling. They do not do the basics right. They don't focus on setting up their inboxes. They end up landing on spam folders because they don't have the right setup. And what you're saying is, hey, the 80-20, do set up a Gmail account, make sure that you have the right setup in place to not land on spam inboxes. And then a little bit to move on with this before going into the go-to-market engineering piece, because I think it's really related, is cold email, right? So you had a really good post where you said, what works in 2024? You said cold email is dead if you're not landing in the primary inbox, which has a lot to do with what you just mentioned, right? What are other things apart from the setup, the technical setup, that you think from a founder perspective or SDRs, the first few sales hires, they should be doing to ensure that they're getting higher open rates, right? Because this is the constant ebbs and flow of being in sales. Depending if you're selling to tech companies or traditional sectors, things work better or worse. But what are some of the things that you've seen in 2024 are going into 2025, specifically about email, which I'm a huge believer in, that you think people should be focusing on? 1 or 2 things that are super underrated or you'd recommend the founder do?
Yeah. Most founders, when they start doing it, they actually fail before they even start, simply because they don't optimize for deliverability. It's what I said before with Google and Outlook being very strict. You can read the reports about cold emailing. It's out there public. So obviously you need to play by the rules. So those 9 tips are super important. And if you don't optimize for those, then you have a high chance of landing in spam. If you land in spam, nobody's going to read your emails. So if you do all the technical work later and then you craft the best copy in the world, it will not matter, right? So second mistake is just doing the spray and pray approach. This obviously doesn't work anymore for many, many reasons. Deliverability is one, but also because people are tired of cold emails. So cold email does work, and we have plenty of data to back this up. What's important though is that you need to optimize for 2 things, and that's to reach out with relevance and personalization. So relevance means that there's a reason why you're reaching out. There's a trigger. Maybe you're selling an accounting software and you can see that in the open jobs, they're hiring an accountant. So it's a good trigger because probably they need help with that to introduce the solution, right? So that's one trigger. There's many of them. I can share a resource about it. Second aspect is the personalization. So I'm sure that if you just open your Gmail, you'll see a lot of cold emails. The moment you see that this is just a generic email, there's a very high chance you're going to delete it. Now, if you've seen someone that actually has done the homework and they mentioned something very specific about you, Iván, and they mentioned something that is very, very relevant, and it took time to create that message. Obviously, there's a higher chance of replying. You're not going to reply 100%, but there is a higher chance. So relevance and personalization is actually what matters in order to make your emails convert.
This is such an interesting point and evergreen advice, because I was doing cold outreach in 2014 at Bloomreach. And the same two concepts of basic human psychology still apply. Nothing's changed. You've had an exceptional amount of automation tools, for SDRs and account executives that have emerged. And still, what worked for me back then was relevant, personalized emails to the point that were short and addressed to a specific, that's going to help them, talking about them and their problem. And it's amazing how many times people forget this, right? So really my point from what you just said is go back to the basics, set up your toolings, make sure first and foremost not to land on spam folders, and then be relevant and personalized, which is harder in the beginning, but you can also develop a system and a muscle to do so, which I think is a great segue for how tooling is actually useful today with AI tools or data enrichment tools or automation or systems tooling that you can build, right? And you had super interesting infographic, which I want to ask you about later, how you make this, because I think they're really nice, called Go-to-Market Engineers being a potentially high paid role in sales by 2025, which actually I totally agree with. So I wanted to ask you, how did you come up with this term? And also, how is it different from RevOps? And who should be the owner, right? Last night I was at a dinner with a bunch of sales executives. And when I talked about this concept, I was testing the waters with them to see when I throw this term out there, how does it resonate or not? And all of them have either interns or someone from revenue operations working on these problems, but not addressing it or owning the problem end to end. So they're people who have incentives that are not aligned with this particular issue, because it is an issue and it should be treated, and I want to know your opinion about this, as a set of experiments with someone dedicated to proving whether the stuff that's coming out and you're testing works or not, and being incentivized around them. So I'll stop talking now. What exactly is a go-to-market engineer?
It's a very fancy term that is very trendy right now, but I think we're gonna see more and more job openings for that. I believe that it will become one of the highest paying careers in tech sales. You can actually see the stats if you go in jobs, especially if you search for jobs in the US, they usually mention their salary range. So you can see that if you actually get the skill set, you can make bank just by going in that route. But anyway, what a GTM, to your question, who actually invented this role? I think it's Clay, actually, because that's how they were naming their people. When we were at the early stages of our agency, ColdIQ, we were thinking, what title should we give to our people that are managing clients? And we initially named them CSMs, Customer Success Managers, because obviously they're managing clients, but it didn't make sense. It wasn't fair to them because what they were doing is extremely complex. So what a go-to-market engineer does is 5 things. The first is email infrastructure. So anything to land in the primary. Second is list building, finding accounts, finding contacts. Third is data enrichment. So that's both on an account level and on a contact level. Because you don't want to rely on what the prospecting databases give you. Fourth is lead scoring, which is super important if you want to just optimize all the channels. And then the 5th point is copywriting. What's actually going to be in the email, what's actually going to be in the LinkedIn DM. So the combination of these 5 things is what allows someone called go-to-market engineer to create the campaign strategy. So the way that I see the go-to-market engineers evolving in the future is that there will be a person at the top that will manage these 5 pillars, and then he will run multiple plays for outbound. So that will be, I can share an extensive list of campaign playbooks, but the possibilities are just endless, right? It really depends on your company, but anything about, companies that attended your webinars, companies that are leaving reviews on G2 or Capterra to other competitors, targeting, someone that is just joining a new company and has a specific job title, an ex-user, an ex-champion. So there is a lot of different plays in the campaign playbook. It really depends on your business, what makes more sense. But that person now with AI and tools like Instantly, SmartLead, Clay, Genesee, and then you have for copywriting, a lot more. That person can replace a team of at least 3 SDRs. And there is no reason for SDRs to just log in every day to LinkedIn, try to build a list and then try to reach out. There is no need to. And GTM engineer can just replace that job. Now, the question is, okay, what do SDRs do and what do AEs do? Which is a very fair point. So the way I see it is that the SDRs should still prospect and should still do manual prospecting because there's a place for that, but they should only do it with the top 1,000 accounts. So it's a more of like an ABM strategy there. And on top of that, they will follow up with the campaign replies because the go-to-market engineer will generate a lot of leads at scale. Now, you need someone to convert those leads into meetings, and those meetings, you need someone to convert them into paying clients. So that's where the AEs will then step in and they will handle the demos and also manage the manual prospecting of the top 200 accounts.
That's super interesting. From the perspective of a founder, when should they start thinking about this figure? So we were talking about 0 to 1 earlier. I'm going to start building out my mini squad, probably an account executive with a couple of SDRs. When do I start thinking about inserting this new emerging figure? Because it is an investment. It's an investment in like having to learn about what the go-to-market tech stack looks like. What's the right hire? How do I think about that? Say I've already gotten to 20, 30K in MRR. I have a product. My retention's good. Starting to think about scaling this. This is still founder-led sales up until 1 or 2 million ARR. When do I start thinking about the go-to-market engineer and how do I insert him or her into the organization?
It really depends on also if you raise money and then you can actually spend on it and experiment. But if you're going very, very lean, then I will actually suggest you start off by doing manual outreach. The reason is also you don't want to burn the whole time, right? You don't want to do outreach to too many people. You can do this at any time. But the most important thing when you're starting out is to just find product market fit, right? Because even if a go-to-market engineer joins and he does magic with the copywriting and gets you meetings, you will not convert them if there is no product market fit. So obviously the first thing you need to optimize for is the offer is great by itself, whether that's a product, whether that's a service. So once you nail that, then you have to start thinking, okay, I need clients in the door. So you could start off manually, but then you will reach a point where you'll be like, okay, this is way too time consuming. It's manual. It works. I just need to scale it. So that's where you need someone, whether that's an agency or an in-house person called go-to-market engineer, to help you with that. And he's going to do the personalized outreach at scale.
And so I have a bunch of founders that come to us or have discussions around, I need to make my first sales hire. What do I prioritize? I prioritize an account, an SDR, go-to-market engineer. How do you think about that? You have 10 units to spend. What do I spend them on? Let's say that you already have beginnings of product market fit. Like you're not ready to pour gasoline on this, but I do need to generate height space for myself because I need to get into operations and I'm there to close, but I don't necessarily have time to nurture leads, generate pipeline. So how do I think about this trade-off and what do I prioritize?
Between the three, right? When it comes to go-to-market engineers, SDRs, and AEs, right? Yeah. Anything that an SDR can do, a go-to-market engineer can do as well, besides cold calling, because sometimes go-to-market engineers are a bit more geeky and SDRs are maybe they're a bit better in just connecting with people. So that's one thing to consider. Second thing is that I think that at the beginning, it should be founder-led sales, right? So I wouldn't rush into hiring AEs because obviously you need to also get feedback, not just for the product, but also for generally, the persona. Where do they see most of the value? Because you want to change the deck, you want to change the way you do the demos. So I wouldn't rush in hiring an AE. So for me, I will choose either a GTM engineer or an SDR. Ideally, I want someone that can do both.
Makes sense. So this is a very interesting trade-off because founders generally find if I hire an SDR, this is what's going through my mind. I'm going to have to train him. I'm not necessarily an expert at sales myself. So what am I going to train him on or with, right? And also I'm touching accounts that are very important for me. They're not design partners, but they're my first clients or first 10, 20 clients. oftentimes they're strategic in a way, right? Not just because they're going to become advocates, but these are oftentimes senior people you go to. And so sometimes thinking, I'm going to hire a relatively junior person who's untrained with the timelines of a startup. It's going to take time. The probability that this relatively junior person is going to open a conversation with someone relatively senior that oftentimes requires technical expertise or a good handle on a product. The SDR component sometimes is tricky, right? So a lot of the times, inevitably, we start talking, or I see them talking about hiring a mid-level account executive with a potential of leadership, but that's going to take care of opening up conversations and then set the founder to, nurture the deal through the pipeline until close, right? But here's this new emerging pattern, which could potentially be amazing for founders if it really produces the results that we think it can with this figure, right? Which is, okay, there is an army of robots in the cloud that can potentially help me open up conversations. So here, I want to segue into AI SDRs, myths versus reality, and I want to get your take on this, because this past 2014 that we've seen, in my opinion, I could be totally wrong, a big emphasis on a set of companies that were promising or possibly over promising hey, leave it to my AI SDR to open conversations and just jump into close. And I think that could potentially be detrimental. And so I want to get your take. What I'm most excited about is data enrichment, because I think that just gives superpowers to people, and I think that's where AI can play a big role. But I want to get your take. So what's myth versus reality with AI SDRs? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think this is one of the hottest topics for 2025. There's tools that claim to be AI SDRs. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I will say, from my experience, from seeing, testing, doing demos, best out there is probably Artisan, 11x, Topo. Those three are great. However, even those that they raise money from Sequoia, they raise money from the best investors out there. I'm talking about 50 million in funding and more. Obviously, there is huge potential. I just believe it's not there yet. Eventually, it will be. There is this campaign of stop hiring humans, just hire an AI SDR and he will do the job for you. That's everyone's dream. It will happen. It's just not there yet. So the way I see it is that go-to-market engineer is essentially an AI SDR, but everything is managed still by a human. So you need that human orchestrator that will do everything. The AI part comes in what you said mostly, which is data enrichment. So if you use a tool like Clay and Genesee, what they do is that you have a huge list of companies, right? You put them in there. Now, what Apollo.io or SalesNav gave you is usually not enough. So the SDRs will just go and manually and research, and they find, okay, they raised this money, they made this post, they have this news, these are the investors, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of stuff they want to find. With tools like that, you can find anything at scale. So once you find it for one, you just replicate it, just on another row, and then you can do it. And you will save so much time in the data enrichment process. Now, what's interesting is that you've done the data enrichment, you have the list ready. Now, how do you reach out to those people? Do you still go in Gmail and just type? No. What you can do now is that you can use inside of those tools, ChatGPT, Cloud, and prompt them. So based on how well you can prompt, you can create what we call AI snippets, which are certain parts of the message. Could be the opening line, it could be the PS line, it could be something in the value prop that is extremely personalized, and it's based on the info that you found. So the combination of that part plus a nice message written by a human, not AI, it's what converts. The opposite happens with AI SDR tools, because the whole message is written with AI, and I don't think we're there yet. It still screams AI. So this is my take on it.
This is super interesting. I've seen this with another wave 10 years ago in e-commerce. We were selling software for e-commerce, big Fortune 500 companies. And the message the realization that the industry got to is it's not AI, it's human plus the machine. So I think this tech wave in, go to market, it's going to probably end up panning out similarly. To me, these toolings are augmenting the capacities of account executives, salespeople. But as a segue, do you think, or to what extent are we seeing the return of this full stack account executive, right? Because arguably, if you're giving an account executive superpowers with, I'm just going to picture this, right? You have an interface that has hundreds of conversations started, but not spammed, because these are accounts that you've enriched, and the opener could be easily a human because it's one line and it talks about them and it's very well done. It's just an opener. And then behind you have the account executive, where the moment that this lead is responding, you insert yourself in the conversation. And so you're using the best of both worlds. So what's your take on this? So can the account executive become full stack now? Do you think the segmentation of SDRs and accounts will still be relevant? Is it a matter of depends on the sector, your go-to-market, your ICP? What's your take on this?
Yeah. So by full stack, I'm guessing you mean to also generate pipeline, generate demos, and then also taking the calls and then be responsible for the whole sales process, right? Yeah. So especially when you're starting out, obviously you need your account executives to prospect. I have a lot of friends that are account executives, and the best account executives are in their companies, and also they prospect. So you actually never stop prospecting. You need to have a full pipeline at all times, otherwise you will not reach quota. So the full stack AE can come in the future. Obviously you can still do it, but it will be more manual prospecting unless you find amazing talent. Now, I think that for the years to come, certain tools will be a requirement very soon. Like at least like Clay, Genesee, Instantly Smart Lead. They will soon be a must. Right now, not a lot of people know how to use them, and that's why a lot of agencies exist, and that's why people pay them. It's because it's very tough to find talent that can be experts in all those tools and be expert in also taking calls and closing, and they don't run their own thing, and they are employees. It's very, very tough. So it's tricky to find those people, but eventually everyone catch up. Not now, it's very difficult though. So if you manage to find someone that can manage the tech stack and also be a great closer, reach out to me because I might need to hire.
What would you say to SDRs today, right? They're in the role. They are taking a liking to sales, even though it is arguably one of the toughest things to do in a tech company, in my opinion. How should they think about, if they want to grow in the profession? What would you tell them they focus on?
The account executives or
SDRs?
Or SDRs. Yeah, I will tell them to focus on two things, because generally SDRs, where the mostly focus is cold calling, and then some of them, they also have metrics and a couple emails and a couple of LinkedIn DMs. To me, that's important, especially cold calling, because it will teach you sales like nothing else will do, especially when you do outbound. I've been there, I've done that. I was doing 100 calls every single day. And I know how tough it is, but that's what helped me to be here today. And I will give them two advices. The first thing is that you need to get hard skills, because as an SDR, you get soft skills. You become amazing at soft skills, but that's not enough in life in general. So you need hard skills. What is hard skills? It's learning tools and then learning how to use them, and also learn copywriting and then the data enrichment part that we talked about. That's the number one. So actually research and find which tools are the best to learn, start learning them, and just bring ideas to the company. Hey, maybe we need this tool. Maybe this will make our prospecting 10x better. Number two is content. I know that we want to talk about it later, but content is just a life hack, I think. First of all, it builds your personal brand, right? So now we're talking together. You found me because I'm building my personal brand. I know a lot of stuff. If I wasn't sharing those in publicly, you wouldn't know that I even exist. So again, this is like a sign that it works, and it's very beneficial personally, but it also helps you professionally for the company, any company that you work in. If you have a good following base and then you post stuff, thought leadership stuff, you will just attract more leads, but you will also make great connections, and yeah, you will book way more demos. I can talk about our metrics there if you want.
That's really cool. Going back to Naval from the beginning, straight from the playbook, build specific knowledge, no? And leverage. And leverage, one of the free ways you get to generate leverage today is through the internet. And if you don't know how to code, you can write. So I completely agree with you. In fact, I got my job at this venture capital fund through writing anonymously. So completely agree. Let's get into that. Let's get into the LinkedIn as a go-to-market magnet, or just scaling yourself through content, right? You closed 2.4 million in ARR in 2024, not from cold calling, which I know you've done also, but from LinkedIn, right? So tell us, beyond reading the Almanac by Naval, why did you get into it? What's your content to pipeline strategy? And generally, how do you approach it?
Yeah. So the way I approach content is what I'm focusing on is GTM playbooks, right? And then if you break it down, it's certain channels. I started off just writing about outbound as a channel, and then I expanded it more. So now I write about inbound led outbound. I write about content, and I'm also getting into ads. So yeah, people now see me more as an authority. I have established credibility. Whenever I speak with someone, the immediate next step is that I connect with them on LinkedIn, and now they see my content all the time, and they also see the content from my team all the time. What does that translate to? It translates to having an unfair advantage over a competitor that doesn't do it or doesn't do it as well. Last year, I started writing in March. I wasn't writing before. And from March till December, I generated 2 million impressions on LinkedIn. So this is proof that anyone can do it. Obviously, your content needs to be good, but I started March. So it's not that long ago, right? And what happened is that because I was writing, there's three things that were, the consequence of that. I was forcing myself to upskill. I built authority, and I created trust. Because the honest truth is that a personal brand makes every inch of the business easier. So that's what I believe in. I think that content is a hack. So to give you some numbers, our team, we had 6 million impressions in Q4. 400 meetings came out of those just by posting, because we track where meetings are coming from. We paid for those 400 meetings $0. So this is your sign to actually start posting out there.
So let's do some inversion on that. And some of the most common objections that I get when talking about this, I would love to get your take on, which is it's saturated. There's too many people writing content. I don't have anything original to contribute. I find that it is cringe to post on LinkedIn. Those are some of the most common ones, and I have answers for all of them, which I completely disagree on. And I completely agree with you that it is a massive hack, and that you don't have to compromise your integrity or your genuine interest to attack these, right? Or to benefit from creating in public. But tell me, how do you handle these objections?
The way I handle them is that I can just pull up a HubSpot report and I can show them how much money actually content made. This is, I think, the easiest way to convince someone to start writing. Now, for the saturated objection, I think this is an objection for every single channel out there. There's a lot of people that even I know from certain coaches I have that they even 20 years back, they were saying cold calling is dead. You shouldn't do it. They still say today it works. Cold email is dead. It works. Everything is saturated if you think about it, but you just have to find the unfair advantage that you have, and then you're gonna make it work if you're smart enough. If it's cringe, anything is cringe, right? So I think LinkedIn content is actually the easiest way of writing content because you don't show your face, you just write. Now I filmed 2 YouTube videos, and there, yes, I do feel cringe because I have to show my face, I have to show my personality. People might judge. So LinkedIn is extremely easy. It's just a hack, and it generates so much pipeline. You don't even need tons of followers. And like Instagram and TikTok, even if you have 6-7K followers and you get 2-3K impressions, I know a lot of people that do that. And we are advising them what to do there, and they generating a lot of leads. So I think, start off easy with that. master one channel like LinkedIn, and then you can expand in more.
How would you handle this one, which is, I think one of the most common ones is, I don't know what to write about? Because you've talked about segmenting out 3 pillars that you started writing with. A lot of people feel like they don't want to be pigeonholed to something, or that they don't know enough about something. How would you advise them on narrowing it down or even approaching it?
Yeah. This is imposter syndrome. Everyone has it. I am sure that even you sometimes you might think about it. You a partner in ABC, you co-founded Revenue Squared, you worked in Facebook, you have all the credibility that is out there. I'm sure that sometimes you're like, okay, should I post about this? Do they care? Everyone has that. So at any level that you'll be, you're gonna think about it sometimes. Truth is, there's always people behind you. There is always someone that is 1, 2, 3 steps behind you, and they wish you were they were you. So the way I see it is that even if it's going to help 1, 2, 3 people to take the next step in their life, I think it's worth it. So if you don't know what you're going to write about, I think you should read the book Show Your Work. And Still Like an Artist. Those are 2 of my favorites. And then you'll get a lot of ideas on how to write.
Those are great. I would summarize this segment with a mini framework. Let me know what you think. But it's if you're hitting the overlap of these 3 concentric circles, you're good, which is write about something that you're genuinely curious about, because it's going to show if you're not. So it needs to be genuine curiosity. Write to help someone, not yourself. Try to help something you care about, really. Like in my case, it's startups. In your case, it's probably go-to-market teams or a proto persona, no? And the third one is do it humbly. Like unless you're Albert Einstein and you have the credibility of having done incredible work, which most 99.9% of population don't, you don't need to be the expert. You can simply document what you learn that you think is going to be helpful for others. So if you hit those 3 things, I think from what I see you write, I would place you right there, because it smells like you're genuinely curious about this. You are humble about it. You're not necessarily prescriptive. You always give multiple tools. And then you are helping a very specific persona. So you're trying to help. Maybe it's you 5 years ago, or maybe it's someone or something you care about. Those are the 3 things that I would focus on. What do you think?
Yeah, I think your answer was better than mine. So to add on that, to be a bit more specific, because I talked a bit more broadly, the way I actually thinking about it more practically is that what am I writing about, right? So that's the first thing. I'm writing about sales tech that help companies scale their revenue. So if you think about it, there's certain subcategories for this niche. So those categories for me are 8, and they determine what I post about. So the way I see it is take your niche and narrow it down to the 8 most important parts. Each of these parts becomes a subcategory. So for me, it's sales tools. There's deliverability. There's list building. There's data enrichment. There's copywriting. There's generally outbound systems and lead magnets. Those 8 things, there's a bunch of questions that people have. I have the answers to them, and people will search for hours to find them. So just, whenever I want to write, I just think about these pillars and I start just writing down a certain draft, and then I will just come back later and just finish it.
This is super helpful for the audience if they're curious about. There's also an interesting framework, which is with the pillars that you just imagine a table where you have the pillars that you mentioned, and then on the top line of your table, you would have archetypes of posts. So opinion, quote, idea, enrichment, metaphor, and then you just brainstorm content. So to get over the writer's block, which shouldn't be an excuse today when you have so many amazing tools that can help you get through this. One last question. This one is a little selfish because I love visuals, and I like how you're creating tables, and you use a very particular design, which may sound silly, but it identifies you, right? It says something about your personality and who you're trying to help. Like, what's the 80-20 to start creating not useless infographics, but stuff that basically condenses your insight or what you want to communicate, because humans are visual creatures. And so Oftentimes, when I think about Fivos' content, maybe there's a chart and a tree diagram that comes to mind because he's linking tools together and he wants to show me, you know, the particular tools that I need to use. So how should someone, let's say a founder that wants to start doing what we're talking about, if they want to dabble into creating this type of infographics or condensing your idea, what do they use? Do you use Canva? Do they use Figma? Is there a YouTube video? What do you recommend?
Yeah, for creating the visuals, what I use is Miro. I think using Miro is a hack because it allows you to explain complex topics in simple terms, and you just break it down in frameworks and step-by-step guides. I actually use it in all my sales calls just to explain people how this works. This is applicable to any kind of business or even idea that you have. So what I do is, Miro. I think if you want to be good at content, you should master it. Now, the way I do it is actually, I just do the draft. I do the V1. I used to edit everything and just posting it, but now I have a designer as well that I will just draft the V1 and then I'll just give it to her to optimize and add, you know, extra logos and optimize the logos because these are just small details that take time. It's not within the 80-20 rule. I suggest you start off, even if the visuals don't look amazing, start posting and then eventually you can do it. Another thing about, you know, tools, I think this will be helpful for a lot of people. If you want to brainstorm what to write about, I recommend you use a tool like Clio, which is free to use. It's a Chrome extension. You can go at someone's profile. You can just look at people that are within your niche, or better if they're not within your niche, and just use Clio. You can see rank their top performing posts and you can take inspiration. So once you see what works and what stood out and got more likes, more engagement than others, you can recreate that, but specifically for your niche.
Last question before I let you go. What is the one or two books that have had the biggest impact in your career?
There's, I would say, two. The first is the Almanac of Naval. Obviously, we discussed a lot about Naval so far. The key there is that you need to master one of two things. That's either selling or building. Depends how you define building. I'm not a coder, so that's what I don't define myself as a builder. But I'm building other things and systems. So what Naval says is that if you combine both, then you become unstoppable. So I think, that's like the biggest one. The second one, since we're talking about sales, I think it's gap selling. Anyone that wants to be in sales or is in sales and want to understand better, improve the conversion, I think that's my number one recommendation. It just explains better how you can build the gap of the current state with the future state and just breaking down everything. So when we talk about current state, there's always, you know, what someone is doing now. So that's, you know, what challenges they have. But then each challenge has an impact, and then each impact has a root cause. So if you go to the doctor and you tell them, hey, I'm sick, you know, that it could be from a lot of different roots, right? Which doctor do you trust more? The one that say, hey, just take some ibuprofen and then you'll be fine, or the doctor that actually goes deep and finds the root cause and then gives you the prescription? So it's the same thing with sales. So that's the second recommendation.
Amazing. Thank you, Fivos. Where can people find you, follow you?
LinkedIn. So you can, it's Fivos Aresti. That's Fivos Aresti. I'm going to have a YouTube channel in about 1 week. So it will be the same there. I think by the time you upload this, people will also be able to find me there.
Amazing. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Fivos, pleasure having you. Speak soon and see you soon.
Thank you, Iván. Thank you for having me.